So just to, I guess, add to Richard, just my introduction, maybe I wanted to show you all some projects that I have led. And what you can see is, you can see that there's a bit of a diversity here. But I've been talking about augmented intelligence since 20 involved in working with industrial customers. So think of manufacturing, oil and gas, energy and utilities, people that come out and inspect your power lines or electricity grids. That's the people that I'm most fascinated by. And those are the people whose life I want to make better, right? So, and when I took a step back and I just tried to understand, okay, what's been my focus? I would say that while you're constantly trying to make sure you're solving a problem, a key business problem, I've kept the users at the center of every key decision that we were making. And when I thought about why behind it, I actually realized this was a slide I showed at IBM's biggest conference in 2017. And I was talking about augmented intelligence. So I'm really proud to say that if you look at just IBM as a culture, I think we've always been at the leading edge when it comes to calling out augmented intelligence and calling out our mission around how we wanted to make sure we were enhancing human capabilities and replacing humans. And that's how we believe that customers get to that higher productivity, those higher earnings, and overall job growth. And so that's why it was, when we say AI, we're always referring to augmented intelligence. So that really shows the focus, and that shows the mindset in how we think and how we make decisions as well. So, and when I was thinking about just augmented intelligence, you know that there's there's societal, there's cultural, there's so many different topics that we can think about and talk about. But what I wanted to do was, I'm assuming that all of us know that there's human intelligence and there's artificial intelligence, and both of which have their strengths and weaknesses, right? But okay, let's assume that we all know that the future, the way forward, is for us to help humans make better decisions, be empowered with artificial intelligence and other technologies, right? And with this, when we speak to customers and we have that discussion and a common understanding there, the next question really comes about adoption, right? And it talks about how do you actually build solutions or implement solutions that empower users, right? And that's really what I wanted to speak about, because I thought about this and we came up with 3 key design areas. And I want to show you all examples, actually. I love visual things. So I wanted to show you how people at IBM or people in the industry are actually using, building augmented intelligence solutions that empower their users. And I try to simplify it. So I brought it down to 3 key principles that I wanted to share. And I am going to keep monitoring the chat. So please feel free to drop questions as you go. But the first is the purpose, right? And if you think about reason to act, it's probably spoken about a lot, where you need to make sure that the problem you're trying to solve needs AI or needs machine learning to begin with. I actually take that one step further, which is, even if you figured out the business problem, right? What's the human need that you're trying to solve? Often when we design solutions or help customers integrate AI in their workflows, we say, okay, let's look at the persona. Let's look at what key actions and key tasks do they do in their day? What tasks do they find delightful? What tasks do they find annoying, right? Let's identify the human need behind why we're building that solution, right? And that's where one of the things we also propose is having dual metrics. And when we say dual metrics, it's around, we know the business metric is important because it ties back into ROI and pays for all of us, right? But apart from that, can you also have a user metric? A lot of products, such as mine, we actually use instrumentation to say, okay, how much are how widely is this feature being adopted? by our users. And we're actually measuring clicks, we're measuring all the wonderful tracking that you can think of to understand how the solution is being used. But even if you aren't that far ahead where you can afford development cycles in that, maybe you can just send people a survey or ask them about usability, ask them about whether it's meeting the need. But again, the key point is have a metric that ties to the human need, right? And make sure you've got that captured. Because I can tell you one thing from our experience, if the problem you're trying to solve doesn't really solve a human need, you're probably either solving a really narrow problem or you're not solving a problem at all. And I know that all of us on this call, we know the world of AI, so we know how important it is to have a diverse team, right? I want to take that a step ahead and say, yes, while diverse team is also spoken about really widely, there's not enough emphasis on values and culture, right? And this is really important because if you think about AI, the AI is going to give you an output. At the end, there's a human out there making a judgment or making a decision based on that input from the AI. And maybe I just, to give you an example here, Amazon built a machine learning model to come up with a prediction for which zip codes should they offer their Prime one-day delivery in, right? So when they were building that machine learning model, yes, they looked at customer buying patterns, they looked at all that wonderful profiling data. And if you look at just the city I'm in, Boston, you could see that the whole city is identified as a prime target, no pun intended for prime. But the middle of the city, there's an area called Roxbury, which is a low-income neighborhood, which some people can also say has a broader proportion of Black residents compared to a much lower proportion of white residents, right? So one could say that the AI is biased, right? But this is where it comes to you. So if you were the person behind this machine learning model, right? And the machine learning model gives you that output, what are you going to do? It obviously doesn't, you're covering the rest of the city. This is literally in the middle. So you have the logistics, you have everything to serve that zip code. So do you want to offer Prime in that area or not, right? So this is where having a culture and having a clearly defined purpose or clearly defined values help all of you and help all of us as we make these decisions. So this is one example around just the purpose and defining the why. I also wanted to talk about transparency. And when we talk about transparency as my principle number 2, I'm actually combining trust, transparency, explainability, all in the same bucket, because it's a similar design problem that you're trying to solve. And the most common ways that I think people can get started with this is the first one is human in the loop. And then the next one is focused around better insights. But I want to give you examples. So when you say human in the loop, this is really important because and I've got screenshots here of a product that we have, which is a digital assistant for technicians, right? So when we give this product to our customers, it comes with a natural language processing model that's been built with decades of research and work built in. So it's a pretty good model, but we still allow our users to, as they add their data, they can refine the documentation even more, and they can relabel the machine learning model to make it fit and make it more appropriate to their data and their context. And ultimately what this does is now when the end user is asking a question or wants to seek information, they can ask a question in natural language, and we don't give them one answer, especially because the world that I work in, the world of maintenance, there's very little times when there's one right answer. We give them a series of answers, and for each of them, we give them the confidence percentages of how likely we think this is the right fit. We give them the chance to upvote and downvote, giving us feedback, which improves our machine learning model and improves our next set of recommendations. So this is a really good example of a pattern that's common in the industry, which is human in the loop, allowing a human, allowing an expert to further refine your machine learning model so that the end results can be even more accurate to your precise needs. So that's one example of how we work on adoption by making sure we work with experts and our end users. If you look at other common examples, I would say that for any AI product, especially because once you give it to a customer and their end users start using it, trust is one of the key challenges in the industry today. So trust is actually solved from a design. I consider trust being a design problem that I'm constantly thinking about. So in this, this is a very common scenario in chatbots where if they don't know the answer, right, you can route the question to an expert. And that's a model which really beautifully combines artificial intelligence and allows you to contact a remote expert for assistance. So think of this combination of AI and human assistance as you design or you think of products. And I also wanted to give you another example around how we in our products are solving for explainability. So in this case, I have Watson Studio. This is a product where people like you and me, we build machine learning models ourselves. Ooh, let me just hit the play button. So you can see that as a user, when you're building machine learning models, you care about bias, right? So as you go on, you add your pipeline. And we understand, we constantly look at contextual data and we detect a bias. So this is where we've started in our UX. We show our users a little beautiful notification that they can optionally click on if they want more information, but we inform our users through these Watson insights if we've detected a certain bias. And one thing that I want to actually pause and call out is when we show them this notification, we show them why did we detect the bias. So if we give them that rationale, they can see additional details, but we also tell them what they can do about it. So in this case, if there's bias in your data, we can, and if they have additional data in their knowledge base, they can actually add additional data sources. So in this case, I've actually said, okay, you can review, and we've identified additional data sources that you can use to remove your bias. So just again, just examples of how we are understanding the client's context and what they're trying to do with AI and recommending them things that we think can help their experience. And I'm not sure if all of you are into screenshots. I screenshot everything. But I will say explainability is hard, and it's really hard for me to cover in the limited time that we have. So what I did was I just tried to show you some key patterns, because I think explainability is also pretty overwhelming. Like you only have so much time and energy and resources you can invest. So I would say if you're someone thinking about explainability, think of which of these patterns you can start with, try to target like one or two, and then grow from there. I think that helps break down the myth of explainability into more usable chunks that you can actually act on. So again, just showing you some examples about trust, transparency, explainability, and what we're doing there. And finally, I also want to talk about the third design principle, which is skill. And this one is really important because while we keep focusing on like what repetitive tasks can be automated, you should know what not to automate. And this is because there are often tasks that shouldn't be automated. Maybe they shouldn't be automated because they involve understanding motivations, understanding emotions. Maybe there's an ethical implication, so you need that model decision to be made. Or maybe if you understand the human journey and their tasks, maybe they find intrinsic value or they're delighted by performing that task. So you should stay away from automating that. And then one thing that customers often don't think of is they don't always focus on what skills will they need. And if you're using IBM Watson, we almost always have no code solutions, which means you don't need to understand, you don't need our data science to actually implement a lot of our core technologies. But if you do decide to still build something from scratch, you need someone who knows Python. You need to have the right skills on your team. And when you think of augmented intelligence, right, one thing people need to understand about AI solutions is they're not like traditional tech solutions where you build it and you're done. You can leave. AI solutions need more care, need more nurturing. And this is where one of the things we've started to do is we want our clients to think of the models up approach from the start. So we want to think them to think about how is this model going to be maintained. We try to keep it real, where we say this model will have to be monitored over time, right? It's not black magic. And so even when they think about model ops, I think the biggest learning curve for a lot of our clients is how model ops needs a collection, like needs a diverse set of functions. Like if you're doing an AI model in like your customer care center, then you need your expert agents, then you need a lot of people from your support, but you also need your data engineers, you also need a data scientist if you have one, but you need this cross-functional team to continue to maintain that model over time. So just some process changes. And if you think about it, think about the three principles that I just covered. It covers people, it covers system, and it covers process, right? So it's not different from how technology has been implemented in the past, but it's just around how the AI spin. I tried to share how it's a little bit different with AI. And I know I went through like just quite a bit, but I tried to be a little more concrete with some examples because I wanted to leave it open-ended and see if you had any questions. Let me look at the chat here.
There is one that's come through. This, I don't know if Linda's a shareholder, but she says, can you give an elevator explanation of IBM Watson? So, can you describe Watson in a few sentences for those of us that maybe aren't so familiar with the story and the history?
So that's a tricky question. I would say, so of course, IBM Watson is our brand for IBM's core artificial intelligence capabilities, which we always call augmented intelligence. And I think if I'm talking about, and people here know what artificial intelligence is, so I don't have to explain to y'all what Watson does. But maybe I can tell y'all when we go to customers and new people, right, who've not heard this for the first time, I say, when we give or introduce Watson in your team, in the start, it's like a baby. So you have to teach it the way you teach a baby, right? But soon it's going to graduate from being a child to being your best employee ever. I don't know if that answered the question, but maybe I'm just trying to give.
It's a nice way to describe it. I've just given you a few more minutes because I know we had a bit of a lag on the start there. Tulsi, do you want to pop your microphone on and just have a quick conversation with Heena since you're asking a few questions? Some people are shy, of course, so we respect that.
Hello, hi there. Hi there, my name is Tulsi. I'm working in the industry for the last 7-8 years. So my question to Heena, your presentation is very good, excellent. So I'm working in terms of the very highly sensitive in the UK, one of the top national secret project. So one of the point you are talking about the IBM Watson. So will AI decision be less biased than the human ones, or how will AI make these problems worse?
That is a great question. And Tulsi, I would say that it really depends on the problems you're trying to solve, right? So it's, I think if you get a little more granular with a scenario, I can give you things, a response specific to that scenario. But I will also say that when you talk about bias, often, so the AI is not biased. We as humans are biased. And often when you're talking about machine learning products where you're labeling, our biases go through the labeling and actually percolate into your AI systems. So biased humans actually make your AI biased. But again, if you have a concrete scenario, I can go concrete as well.
Let's take a pause on that one, because otherwise we're not going to have as much time as we'd like for Jeff in a moment. Heena, thank you so much. Delivered with a winning smile the whole presentation as well. You can't ask for more than that to lift our spirits on AI. Really, really great to hear more from you and Watson. So please do join me on the chat, and let's just show our appreciation and gratitude for Heena spending some of her day with us today. And you've still got the rest of the day to go. Actually, not the rest of the day. You've got the afternoon, haven't you, to go? So
Yeah.
it's not over yet, just like it is in the UK. We'll be having our tea after this in the UK. So Heena, thank you. If you could stick around, and perhaps we could have a chat a bit more towards the end, if you don't mind.
Of course. Thank you, everyone. I'll